This golden retriever becomes a hero after the owner captures his peculiar yet brave act on camera. Dogs are amazing, aren't they? It doesn't take much for them to win our hearts. They make the silliest and the most stupid stuff look cute. They'll revolve around their own tail to chase what only they and God knows. You can see it on their face about how they feel. They'll hop around the house unable to contain their excitement and lick our faces clean to show their affection towards us. Some of us don't hesitate from teaching our beloved pets a few tricks that'll make them look cool. From handshakes to simple instructions and jumping through hula hoop rings, we take pride in everything they do, and why not? A dog is a man's best friend after all. While these little things send us to cloud nine, can you imagine how proud a dog owner would be if his pet pulls an act that not only makes him an internet sensation but is also deemed as awe-inspiring? Yes, we're talking about setting a benchmark here. This story will take you through an incident that unexpectedly occurred in the lives of Mark Freely and his golden retriever that entitled this dog a real-life hero. You'll be amazed and might end up becoming a fanboy of this golden retriever just like I did. It was supposed to be like any other Sunday in the lives of Mark Freely and his golden retriever Storm. Waking up late, skipping breakfast and just hoping to the brunch plate, followed by a routine walk to their favorite place, i.e. the Port Jefferson Harbor, New York. While the first half of their day was pretty much the same and ordinary as they would expect it to be, Storm the golden retriever would spot the unexpected on the bank of the harbor and would jump right in, and his discovery would make him an overnight internet sensation. Mark Freely, a native New Yorker, would spend most of his time reading and researching cases for his clients on a pro bono basis. In simpler words, he's a personal injury lawyer who at present practices at East Setauket, New York. While Mark was known for his gentle and kind behavior towards others, he would soon become famous by an unexpected act pulled by his dog. Being a lawyer's not something a lot of people would fancy. I mean, one's always surrounded and working on cases that can take a toll on one's mind as well as body. Staying up till the late hours and indulging the brain in mental gymnastics to find a loophole or any clue that could help crack the case might look cool when Sherlock Holmes does it, but the reality is somewhat different, and there are very few things that can take one's mind off the stressful job. Luckily, Mark had a bolt hole that kept him safe. Mark loved what he did for a living. He was generous enough to the people who couldn't afford a lawyer's fee and often volunteered free service to his clients. But his love and generosity weren't limited to his clients. He had a soft spot for animals in his heart. After a long day at work, Mark would rush straight home to his family that included 2 pet dogs, Storm, an English golden retriever, and Sarah, a border collie, to spend his time and play with them. He also owned a rabbit called Speedo. Mark can't pick a favorite when asked his love for his sweet creatures is distributed equally. No brownie points and no favoritism whatsoever, but Storm, the English golden retriever, is the heartbeat of this family and the glue that holds them all together. He helped Sarah, the border collie, in adjusting with unfamiliar surroundings after she was rescued. Moreover, he doesn't mind when Speedo the rabbit sleeps on his back. However, he sometimes invites troubles because of his more than generous attitude. It's right to say that Mark is an animal lover, as his love and care are not just limited to the pets he owns. He's always reaching out to those crying for help. Mark is a volunteer at a local animal rescue service, and he would often offer his time and efforts in fostering abandoned dogs. He's fostered a decent number of puppies over the past couple of months and still looks forward to helping those in need. There's not a single bone of envy in Storm. The dog gets along pretty well with fostered puppies that Mark's bring to his place every now and then. In fact, he's often a plaything with the puppies. They climb all over him, nip his ears and whatnot, but Storm always remained calm, unlike his name. Unlike Storm, Sarah wasn't always the part of Mark's little family. It was after when it came to Mark's knowledge through the animal rescue service he'd volunteered for. Sarah was abandoned by her former owner and was in an awful condition when she was first discovered. The poor dog had been starving for days, fighting the harsh winters before ending up in Mark's family. Mark thought it would be cool if his dogs had a couple of tricks up their sleeves. After Sarah's adoption, Storm now had a buddy, and Mark decided to teach both of the doggos some fetching skills. While Sarah was catching up quickly, Storm didn't seem to be too excited about it. It wasn't just his dislike for the frisbee, he also denied to fetch sticks and balls that Mark threw at him. Perhaps it was just not his thing, but the golden retriever's instinct would kick in when Mark least expected it. It was obvious that fetching wasn't his thing, but Storm clearly loved taking strolls around his favorite place, the Port Jefferson Harbor, which was only a few steps away from Mark's home. Mark believed that his dogs loved this route because of the eye-catching visual of boats sailing at the harbor, moving in and down, a sight the dogs found quite amusing. Mark is a busy man and it's not possible for him to walk his dogs there on a daily basis. However, he always makes sure to do so on weekends. Their weekend thing would soon take an unexpected turn though. It was scorching hot and the sun was sucking the life out of everyone. But then what else to expect when it's mid-July? However, it wasn't enough to stop Sarah and Storm from taking a stroll, and the strong breeze helped them in staying fresh and rejuvenated. Like usual, they walked through the same path and admired the waves rolling and playing on the beach. It was much like any other day in their lives. Little did they know that they're about to become remarkable. Storm the Golden Retriever was one heck of a swimmer and loved taking dips at the Port Jefferson Harbor. On weekends, their stroll would often end up with a swimming extravaganza, with Mark often filming his Golden Retriever. However, this time was a bit strange. While Storm was at it, he soon started acting up weird that made Mark wonder, and he decided to take a look so as to figure out what exactly was up with his dog. Mark saw his Storm hopping towards the surface of the water. He was initially surprised by Storm's behavior, but eventually thought to himself, the summer of New York had perhaps overheated the poor dog. Mark was still skeptical about Storm's strange behavior as it was the first time he'd witnessed Storm acting like this. He was as intrigued, but he'd soon get to know Storm's real intent. What Mike hadn't thought didn't turn out to be the case with Storm. He wasn't just trying to cool himself off, and there was more to it than met the eye. Storm was purposely swimming towards something which was yet unknown. Mike couldn't figure it out as he could only see a lump swaying in the water, but soon he would identify this mysterious thing that would only take him by surprise. It was hard to figure out from the place that Mark had been standing as to what this particular object or thing was. What exactly could draw a dog's attention in the water? Well, it could very well be a dead fish, Mark thought. Storm was a Golden Retriever who happened to have a good appetite, so he wouldn't just let a delicious fish go. Mark began to worry and assumed that it was a rotten or poisonous fish. What he didn't know at the time was that it was something way bigger than a rotten fish. A Loch Ness monster? Of course not, but it would definitely change the colors on Mark's face. As Storm began making his way back to the shore, it got clear as to what the object Storm had been holding in his mouth was. Judging by the visuals, it didn't come across as a fish. At this point, Mark was hoping that it wasn't a piece of bad trash like glass or metal or anything sharp that could cause damage to Storm. It was just when Storm made it to the shore and the sight of what his dog had been holding left him stunned. Of all the speculations Mark had made, none came closer to what it actually was. The dog had made strenuous efforts not for hunting a fish or to pull out a bag full of trash. Mike was still clueless of what it was, and he started filming the whole thing on his smartphone, a decision he wouldn't regret. It had only been seconds filming, and soon Mike caught sight of the most awaited, and as it turns out, Storm had been holding an animal. Storm's strange behavior now made sense to Mark as he came closer to the shore. The sight of what Storm had been holding was now clear as crystal. It was a baby deer that Storm had been strenuously dragging out of the water. Mark was amazed, and he started cheering Storm's name so as to encourage him in his pursuit of making it to the shore, while his buddy dog Sarah barked out of excitement. Would Storm make it or end up getting in trouble himself? At last, Storm swam his way through the distance of half a mile and made it to the shore with a baby deer. After making it out of the water, Storm gently placed the fawn onto the sand and looked at Mark. Mark could notice the fawn wasn't moving, showing no signs of life. Was it dead? Were Storm's efforts in vain? Mark thought so at the moment, but Storm had another plan. Storm wasn't giving up. He nudged the fawn softly with his nose, pawed at him, and licked him around the neck. Finally, Mark was able to detect a very faint shaking. The deer showed signs of life with a subtle movement and was still alive but in shock. Storm stayed by the fawn's side while Mark ran back to his car to call for help. He wasn't sure the deer would make it, but his dog's dedication gave him hope. So it appeared that the brave dog Storm was rescuing a baby deer and had successfully made it out of the water, but the job wasn't done yet. The fawn was still in a sensitive condition and things could go wrong if immediate action wasn't taken. Keeping this in mind, Mark immediately sprinted towards his car so he could call for help. But did he take too much time in doing so? Only time could tell. The odds were against them, but Storm's determination inspired Mark. Mark had rescued other animals before, so he knew it was the best thing to do under such circumstances. Mark immediately called a local group he used to volunteer for, Strong Animal Rescue League. Mark established his whereabouts and provided a brief description of what exactly had happened so as to help the rescuers analyze the situation and prepare accordingly. Now he could only wait for the rescuers to arrive. The rescuers arrived just minutes after Mark called them. Equipped with nets and leashes, Frankie Floridia along with his partner Erica Kutzing came to their rescue. In the meantime, Storm's care had done enough to keep the baby deer alert, but when he caught the sight of a few men approaching him, he staggered on his feet and rushed back into the water. He was scared maybe. "They're animals of flight. They're gonna take off wherever they can go," Mr. Floridia said. It was natural for the fawn to feel intimidated by the visual of 2 dogs and 3 humans, despite the fact that Storm had only saved his life a moment ago. However, Storm didn't take it personally and sprinted to chase the baby deer. Mr. Floridia took off his shirt and ran after Storm into the water. The fawn ran at full speed but couldn't stretch a run past 250 feet, with the rescuer finally getting a hold of her. Pulling the deer out was an arduous task which caused a knee injury to Mr. Floridia. He immediately collapsed on the ground and his companion Miss Kutzing took care of the rest. Despite suffering an injury, Floridia walked out of the beach as a happy man, as it was worth it. The fawn was scared to the bones as he kept moving and thumping when Miss Kutzing carried him back to her van. He was drenched in water and gradually calmed down when Kutzing wiped him with a dry towel. By what they had examined, it was a 3-month-old white-tailed deer. While the baby deer was successfully rescued and was now out of danger, it would take him a couple more days to make it back to the woods. The fawn was out of danger now, but didn't mean he was 100% safe. The little deer had to wait a while before making it back to the woods. He had suffered severe injuries, including a bruised up and swollen eye. The rescuers examined the fawn and concluded that he needed to be medically observed for a few more days. Erica and Frankie drove the deer back to a local wildlife rehabilitation center owned by the Star Foundation. He's in safe hands now. The deer was further handed over to the Save the Animals Rescue Foundation. It took him a couple of days to get back to a stable condition. He was nursed with antibiotics and aided with a drinking formula. He had suffered from multiple injuries that included wounds on his head and a swollen eye shut due to the fall. The question that amazed everyone was, how did a wild baby deer who belongs to the woods end up in the middle of a body of water? While the exact details of how it happened can't be traced, the rescuers at the Strong Island Animal Rescue suggested a theory that the fawn must have lost track of his whereabouts and was frightened after losing sight of his mother. The wounds over his body also hinted the fact that he had fallen off from a decent height and eventually ended up in the body of water. No matter how he got himself in this lethal ordeal, the good thing was that he made it out alive. Everything, even the ordinary stuff, ends up landing on social media these days, and the heroic act pulled by Storm was nothing short of marvelous. Mark took to his Facebook and uploaded the rescue footage, and the video went places in no time. While Mark had expected nothing but 100 views, he was taken aback by the pervasiveness of social media when his video broke the internet by racking up as much as 5.2 million views. Someone must be feeling famous, huh? It's not every day that people get to see a dog rescuing a deer. The story had the potential to attract audiences, and the fact was well received and acknowledged by the media. It wasn't long after the video went viral and a dozen of TV channels and local newspapers in New York contacted Mark and his dog Storm to hear the tale of the brave character they displayed while rescuing the baby deer. The duo went on to feature in a couple of morning shows, and they certainly loved the limelight they were getting. Who wouldn't? I'd go bonkers if my dog did anything in the likes of what Storm had done to save the fawn. Mark is no exception when it comes to praising his pet's heroic stunt. Mark is proud of Storm and he never misses a chance to say it out loud. It was so touching, Mark said. It showed he really had a care and was worried about the fawn. Not only Mark, but we're also proud of Storm for what he did. If it wasn't for his efforts, the poor fawn's struggle would go unnoticed and he would have met his end. No credit is to be taken away from Storm for what he had done. However, it wouldn't have been possible without the help of the rescuers, given that the fawn rushed back into the water for the second time. And it was Frankie who, at the cost of a knee injury, dived right in to protect the baby deer. It was an amazing group effort today, the Strong Island Animal Rescue League wrote. Thank you Mark, Storm, Frankie, Erica, and everyone at Star who all played an amazing part in saving a life today. It was a sight to behold the way that Storm dealt with a fawn. It was as if a mother was holding her puppy. Storm grabbed the fawn by the neck so as to get her to a safer place, despite the fact that it was not her puppy. It wasn't even a dog for that matter. I think we could all learn something from Storm, Floridia said. If we just learn to treat each other nicely and look out for each other despite our differences, the world would be a better place. Everyone did their best on their part. Floridia and his buddy Erica Kutzing had to sprint a mile more or less on the beach to rescue the fawn. I don't think I could have done it without the help of my partner. There came a point when Floridia blew his knee out and collapsed on the ground. It was when his partner Kutzin rescued the deer to their van and drove to the local animal rehab center where he's getting proper medical care. We wish the little baby deer a speedy recovery.